Welcome to the show today. We are going to be talking about how to win your legal case with the help of weather expert. Marty Coniglio is a Emmy award-winning broadcast meteorologist with over 30 years experience in forecasting and researching weather and climate, extensive knowledge of forensic meteorology and its application to legal matters. Let's welcome our good friend to the show, Mr. Marty. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Brandy?
Good, good. So the first question I'm going to ask that everybody wants to know: why do the weatherman say it's 50 degrees outside, but it feels like 40? What is that about?
Well, yeah, that's one of the things. You remember that there are a lot of things in your skin and your body that affect how you feel. For instance, like right now in my house, it's I don't know, what is it? 68 and a half degrees in my house right now. I like it a little cool in my house. And I'm wearing short sleeves and I'm a little chilly, but I like to be a little chilly. Now, if I were outside in direct sunlight and it's 68 degrees, that's pretty hot. But the thing is, 68 degrees measures the temperature of the air, not the temperature of your body. If it's cloudy, if it's windy, those are things that affect you because you, I, everybody else, we sweat. And even just a little bit of moisture getting evaporated off your skin cools you. That's why we sweat. That's the physiology of it. So it doesn't feel that great. I live in Colorado in the Denver area, and I can guarantee you the difference between, like, if it's 40 and calm and sunny, it's warm. It is warm. You're out in the sun and you're like, but you're taking jackets off and everything. But if it's cloudy and windy and 40, it's cold. So there are a lot of things physiologically going on there that aren't really, it's not really the air temperature that we're measuring. It's how you're affected by all the other stuff going on.
Awesome. That's dope because I never knew that. I'm like, why you want to just say it's 40 outside? I don't get it. Like
Yeah,
what's the math behind this? These numbers. I don't get it.
right.
So how did you get into becoming a meteorologist?
Originally, I did it as actually my fallback. My original training was in psychology. I did most of my college work in psychology. I was a senior in college. I was pursuing a degree in psychology, and I went into what they call the practicums, where you went to the county mental health service, and you worked with a counselor there, and you work with actual cases. You work with people who are coming back and forth for counseling, and this wasn't clearly, it's not glamorous. It's not like Beverly Hills, people lying on the couch. These are people with ongoing emotional and mental problems that are never going to be cured. And I realized I didn't have the emotional reserve to deal with it. I did a semester of that and I just went, oh, I can't do it. It's too hard because I want to fix them. And there are a lot of conditions, psychological conditions that you manage, you don't fix. So I found that to be really frustrating. And I love natural sciences. I've always had an interest in weather. I was terrified of the math, because I was like a dumb jock in high school. And, I took like the most basic math courses you could take just to sort of get by and graduate. And I eventually said, meteorology is where I wanted to go. So I busted through the physics and I worked my tail off to get through the calculus, and I love natural sciences. I'd rather understand something than try to manipulate it. So that's why I got into it.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool because as you was talking earlier before the interview, you was talking about how things have changed. So tell us what has changed in the media as far as the weather is concerned from when you first started out in the 80s, 90s up until now.
Hey, when I started, 1985, Lincoln, Nebraska, plexiglass map stuck to a wall, like a big map, like with big old outlines on it. And I had three colors. I had red, I had blue, and I had purple, and they were markers. They're water-based markers, and you would draw high pressure and fronts and numbers. Like for temperatures, to display temperatures, you had to draw them on the map. And here's what's awesome is I'm left-handed. Now, I don't know if you know this. This is a psychological thing for you. Left-handed males have the worst penmanship of any demographic that exists. So any left-handed man that you meet, if you see him, you can be guaranteed that his penmanship sucks. And so mine did. And so the managers actually said, after about a month doing this, they go, yeah, your numbers are really hard to read. So what I did was I had my girlfriend, who is now my wife, come in and draw the numbers for me before the show, because she has lovely penmanship. But then we went to, then the rapid ascent of computer technology was awesome. Getting into computer graphics and stuff, I just love that. And we started with, stuff that had very little capability and was super expensive. Like the first Silicon Graphics was one of the first companies that came out with electronic graphics. They had these little, it's hard to describe them. They kind of look like little toasters. They're boxes, not like a rectangle, or, we're used to PCs and laptops but these things look like they're like little green toasters, and they cost $18,000 a piece. That and now, like, your phone has 10 times the computing power that they had. And this is the late 1980s. So technology was so expensive, but it was fun, and it's changed. And so then we went from those specialized platforms to Mac platforms. And then when it migrated to PCs, which happened in the late 90s, then everything got a lot more reasonable. You were able to integrate the software and the hardware a lot better and do things a lot faster. There's some sweet, just amazingly powerful programs out there that if anybody watches somebody on TV that they get to work with, they're cool. They're very cool.
Yeah, now it's just a green screen in the back.
That's right. It's just a green screen in the back, and everything that you made to put in it, and everything's a thumbnail, and you can zip it around. Like when I just stopped doing daily weather. I was doing morning weather I did nights for like 27 years. And then from 2014 to last summer, I was doing early mornings. So that's a 2 a.m. wake up. That's a 3 a.m. arrival to work. And then it's radio, web, blog, get it all done, forecast, and editorial meeting. Our first editorial meeting was at 3:45 a.m. And then we're on the air at 4:30, and we are on the air nonstop, 4:30 to 9. So, and some people even do longer than that. And I did somewhere between 50 and 60 individual hits during the course of the morning.
Oh, wow.
So
that is a lot.
It is a lot, and I'm glad I got out of the marker realm, because I would have run out of things to draw. I would not have figured that out at all.
Wow. So in the beginning, we said that you're an Emmy award winning in this particular space. What year did that happen in?
In 2007, 2008. Well, actually, I'll go back. I don't often apply for Emmys. I mean, I know people that have rooms full of Emmys because they're incredibly talented, fantastically talented people. I don't apply very often. I don't submit for an Emmy unless I think I have something really good. In the early 90s, I did a show at KCNC television in Denver. It was called News for Kids, and the 4 was the numeral 4. And it was a weekly news program that was designed for kids. It was part of it was an FCC requirement that you have children's programming, but we did it on a local level, and we won an Emmy for that, for best children's programming. In 94, we won an Emmy for our live coverage. Well, I take that back. In 90, we won an Emmy for our live coverage of a tornado in Lyman, Colorado, which is a small town out east. I had a tornado go down Main Street in the evening. and luckily we were able to warn for it about a half hour before. And so people were able to hide. There were some people who were like they're like in a bar, and they went in the beer cooler, because it was the most secure place to go, and everything down Main Street just got shredded. So we won for that. In '94, we won for, there's actually on the Eastern Plains, a town called Fort Morgan. They had 2 tornadoes out of the same storm. They were about a quarter mile apart, and they were spinning, and we did live coverage of that one for that. And then in 2007, 2008, I won for Best Weathercaster. I got a lot of primetime exposure because our main weathercaster was on maternity leave, and so I went for that. So it's been a few. We actually did one night in 2008. The Democratic National Convention was in Denver, and the night before the convention, we did 2 hours of extended coverage with live helicopter coverage of a tornado that went through the south part of town. And a good friend of mine who was the helicopter reporter at that time, and her name is Amelia Earhart, and yes, that is her real name. She was reporting from the helicopter, and I was reporting on the ground. And at that time, Brian Williams was the big cheese at NBC. And he called in the next day and he said, that was some of the best TV I've ever seen. So that was a nice compliment to be able to do that. We've just done a lot of stuff. Like Sunday, I got 26 inches of snow here at the house on Sunday. We had a blizzard here on Sunday. Yeah, I've been shoveling for 2 days. And it was the first time since 1989 here that I have not gone to work during a snowstorm. And I got to tell you, it's a nice feeling. It was pretty sweet. It's like, oh, I think I'll just have a cup of tea. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that's always a good feeling. So, why did you decide to leave after all these great accolades and being in the business so long? What made you decide to leave?
Well, in 2019, I decided to leave. The nature of the business has changed. The demands of the business have changed. The standards of the business have changed. And in 2019, I decided to leave. And I had a close family member have a really unfortunate financial situation at the end of 2019, which I thought I was going to have to help out financially. So I actually signed another contract in 2020. I said, okay, I'll do it for another year. And then we went remote in March because of COVID. So I was doing my, I was doing my daily weather from where you see me now. This is where I was doing everything. And then by July, I think the combined stress of COVID, the fact that I truly was burned out. I was burned out. I violated some of the social media standards by making political posts on my Twitter feed, and I got fired. And I think it was, in my case, you can Google me, you'll find it. I mean, I got to, I have to have full disclosure that I think in my case, it was like career suicide. You know what I mean? Like you really did mean to do it, even though you didn't do it. I see you Googling right now. It'll pop up there. And I did it. And I have since done a couple of op-eds talking about why I did it. But it really was the business was over for me, and it was hard to walk away after you've done it for so long. It's hard to walk away from the money, and so I think I subconsciously found a way to do it. That maybe having a U.S. congressman threaten you probably isn't the best way to finish it out, but that's the way I did it.
Not a good way to finish that.
No, it doesn't. But I'm surviving. I got a lot of people who've been supportive, and I just feel like there's a if I may, there's a race to the bottom in local news. I just think that they're struggling to find their place. I wish them the best, but it's just too competitive. There are too many other competitors in media. There are too many other competitors for news. There's an entire segment of the news audience that has written them off. That just flat out says, "Well, I don't believe you because you're the mainstream media." And
Right.
that, it's not the days like when I grew up. And again, Brandy, I'm way older than you are. But when I grew up, even when I was a paper boy, when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, I would go home at night and watch Walter Cronkite on the news. And Walter Cronkite was the gospel. When Walter Cronkite spoke, it's like you believed that Walter Cronkite was the truth. And that doesn't exist anymore for people. And I found that to be really challenging. So what I wanted to do was get away from the media aspect of it and all the trappings and all the pressures and all the deadlines, and focus more scientifically on where weather and meteorology and the study and the history and the climate can be beneficial. And to do these cases that I do one at a time, where it's an attorney that's a plaintiff in a case making a claim or defending a case, uncovering evidence and presenting it is very rewarding to me, because you're making a difference in these individuals' lives or this entity's life. I like it.
That's cool. So now that you have transitioned out of that space and now you're into forensic meteorology, which you're an expert witness and you bring your expertise to the field. What is a forensic meteorologist?
What you do, well, this is what it is. I'm going to say that 5 years ago, there was, let's just say that a guy was driving up a highway. And some of this is based in fact, but I won't give you any specifics, so I'm not going to violate any disclosure agreements. A guy's driving up a highway. It's windy. It's really windy. As he's driving up a highway, those real estate signs that you see, not the little ones, but the big ones, that like if it's on a big piece of land, they're maybe 4x8 and they got big old wooden signs. Okay, those big guys. All right. So he's driving up on this highway. One of those signs snaps off, flies across the highway, goes through his windshield and hits him in the face. Okay? And I could tell you from looking at images, almost tears his nose off. So it's ugly. This man is horribly injured. This man sues and says that sign should have been able to withstand this wind. So he gets a lawyer, and the lawyer says, yeah, look at this. And I've got these engineers that say this sign would broke it, and the wind was only 69 miles an hour, and the wind broke it, and the posts were rotten, and they didn't do it right, and it was terrible. And then they have a meteorology expert, and they say, yeah, there was some wind that was pretty strong, but it wasn't right here. And in this, whatever this was pretty localized. So, they should have known about this. So clearly the sign wasn't put in right. It was too weak. The posts were bad. These guys are at fault because the sign should, and there are actual ordinances about this, Randy, where the sign is supposed to be able to take 106 mile per hour winds for 3 seconds. It's in the law. So in comes the defense. Defense hires a forensic meteorologist, and the meteorologist goes, studies all of the observations for that storm, and then studies observations for previous storms. Now, why would he do that? Because the engineering firm had said, well, it could never withstand a 69 mile per hour wind. The forensic meteorologist comes in and goes, well, yeah, 2 years before the wind was 85 miles per hour, the sign is still there. 3 years before the wind is 100 miles per hour, the sign is still there. So clearly your engineering report is wrong. So they've now discredited the engineers that said the sign wasn't put in right. Okay. Then he looks even further and finds that the morning of the accident, about 3 hours before, the wind was blowing, and this actually happened, 127 miles per hour. Exactly. So that was more than the law required, right? So it blew down. So then someone said, well, this is not widespread. Who could have known about this? And so these guys were at fault. It had to be this. So then the forensic meteorologist finds that 3 miles up the road, an entire barn was ripped apart and ripped to shreds. And then the forensic meteorologist goes 70 miles down the road and has road signs that the Department of Transportation put in, the big metal ones, twisted and thrown across the highway. And semi trucks blown over a 25,000 square mile area. So they established that the engineering report for the other side was wrong. The wind was actually stronger than it needed to be per law, and therefore the folks with the sign weren't at fault. That's an example of what a forensic meteorologist does.
Wow, that's a high speed wind. Oh my goodness.
So, it's unbelievable. Yeah, and that does happen. There are places where it happens, like in the Northeast. You probably heard of Mount Washington in New Hampshire. They get some vicious triple-digit winds, and I live on the east side of the Rockies here in Colorado, and 100-mile-per-hour wind actually happens quite a bit, and it is noisy. It's wicked.
You know what? I do want to ask, tell us, what is jet stream? What is that exactly?
Jet stream was discovered, if you will. It was always there, but we figured it out after aviation came into vogue in the 20s and 30s, and airplanes started getting the capability to go to higher altitudes. So the jet stream is an area. It's an area of the atmosphere that's actually a pressure level, and I don't want to be too goofy and technical, but it's about what is called 300 millibars. When we measure, I never use it. Like if you hear atmospheric pressure, 29.72, that whole business. In my brain, I never use that. In meteorology, we use millibars. For instance, sea level is about 1,000 millibars of pressure. And the 300 millibar level is where there's a very often strong area of wind that's confined there. And they call it the jet stream because that's about the most efficient place for jet engines to fly and operate. It's a trade-off between diminished air density and the jet engine running at a maximum efficiency. So if you're traveling, of course, west to east, your pilot goes, hey, I want to get right in this thing, and we're just going to cruise. And if you're going east to west, you want to get at an altitude that might be a little above or a little below where the strongest winds might be, so you don't have to take too much longer to get there. Because, you think about it, the strongest jet stream ever recorded, by the way, is 261 miles per hour. So think about that. If you have that as a tailwind, so you could go, like if you're going 500, you're going almost 800 miles per hour. That's sweet, right?
Yeah, I know.
How nice would that be?
There's been times where we caught a lot of good tailwind coming back from LA to Florida, and it chops off the time tremendously. Like everyone knows that if you're traveling from east to west, it's going to be about a 5.5 hour flight. I promise you, we got there in probably right at 4 hours.
Oh, I don't doubt it. And so that's what it is. That's the jet. That's what the jet stream is, and it has a lot of other interesting factors because what it represents, it's like a dividing line between different air masses. Now, in the summertime, there really isn't much of a jet stream because, frankly, in the continental U.S., everybody's hot. Right? You go, Florida's hot, you go up to North Dakota, it's hot, everybody's hot. So the air is all at the same level. So there really aren't very strong jets. But this time of year, where you have places that are really warm, but you still have places that are well below freezing. That difference in the atmosphere creates boundaries, and the boundary is where the jet stream, where you will find the jet stream. And again, it's 300 millibars, so it's generally between 30 and 40,000 feet above our heads.
Oh
But
wow.
you lived it. You got a 4-hour coast to coast trip. You lived it.
Oh yeah, and I loved it. Get me off that flight fast as you can. Thank
I
you.
know. Get me out of here.
So now that you're in the legal space and you're working in legal space, what are the importance of an expert testimony for a legal case?
It can be the difference. I know this sounds like it's like, oh, I'm so important, but it really is the difference between winning and losing, and or the difference between going to trial and settling. I had one. Let me give you two examples of that. So one, this is a real easy one. You were talking about how strong the wind is. We had a place down south here in Colorado. It's on Highway 160, and there's a Levita Pass. You know, the passes are those little winding things through the mountains. Well, Levita Pass has strong winds, and there's an accident where a truck, a tractor trailer kind of truck, got pushed by the wind. He was running empty, so he had an empty trailer, so he's kind of light, and so he got pushed by the wind over into oncoming traffic, and he smashed into a car. So the people in the car badly injured. They sued. And so the insurance company for the trucking company hired me, and they said, okay, we want to know what happened. Just tell us what happened. And so I looked at the wind speeds. I looked at not only the wind speeds there, wind speeds around, and the fact that there was a forecast for strong winds for that area more than a day and a half before it even happened, which means that as a professional, the truck driver should have been aware of that. And therefore, you can assess liability. And when I got done with the report on that one, my client said, yeah, I think we're going to settle, because they weren't going to win. They weren't going to win. And so I was able to say, you can fight, but this is what happened. Now, here's another one. And this one came to mind because we just had a blizzard on Sunday. A few years ago, we had March blizzards happen here because of the jet stream, by the way. But we had one where there was a blizzard on one day, and the next day a family says, hey, we want to go out to eat. So that morning they say, we want to go to Village Inn and eat. So they call Village Inn and they say, hey, can we come and eat there? And they say, yeah, we're open, come on out. So they drive up there. Of course, the parking lot has been shoveled. They did all that. Guy gets out of his truck, slips on ice. You've heard that clear ice, or they call it black ice because you can't see it. And it really gets badly hurt. So you think, well, God, it's the day after a blizzard. What do you expect, right? In that case, I was able to show that the temperature of the ground was enough to melt some of the snow from the bottom, not from the top, and that the water seeped out. We estimated the amount of water that would have seeped out by comparing the amount of snow that fell and the amount of snow that existed, and then took the temperature of the actual ground, the actual pavement, said that's below freezing. That would do ice. And you know what? You guys didn't put ice melt down, and won. And we won.
Wow.
So that's what you do. If you're fortunate, the data are there, and you can put on a case. And we do that with all kinds of things. We had a case where we had a major hailstorm. In fact, this is going to trial in April. I'm going to be testifying about this at trial, where we had a major hailstorm in 2017, and properties just got, hail like tennis ball, baseball size hail. And these properties got damaged, and their insurance companies said, nah, you're okay. You didn't get damaged. So they bring me in to establish the strength of the storm, the path of the storm, how large was the hail, and you go into all these databases and you pull this out and you distill it. You're like You're like a chef. You know, everybody can go into a kitchen and all the spices are there and all the ingredients are there, but a chef knows where they are, how to use them, how to find them, and how to put them together. And that's what I do.
This, oh my God, this has been awesome. I feel like I was in science class today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, that's what I like to do.
You should
I like
definitely
to.
consider teaching natural science. Like you would be an awesome instructor, awesome professor in that regard. I promise you, your students will love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty, for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Brandy.
All right, here's on the next IBS.